It's really quite a major milestone for us to be doing a focused activity around Volunteer Week. It's the first time we've done that, and as you all know, as dedicated volunteers with us, volunteers are absolutely the lifeblood of this organization. They're the reason it exists and has been able to do all the work that it has done. So it's terrific to think that we're up over or almost 3,500 volunteers who have signed up, and materially over 1,000 people who have contributed now. So it's a tremendous testament to the enthusiasm and the dedication of all the volunteers. It's great to see so many of you on the call today who I know have been really active in the Soundscape project. We'll pass to Kirsty for a very brief kind of background to the project for those of you who haven't heard it directly. And as the first activity in Volunteer Week, it's great to be able to welcome you all and thank you for all the hard work that you do. So, Kirsty, maybe I could ask you just to give a little bit of the backstory about Soundscape, and then, as Joanna was saying, we can focus on where we're at and where we're going.
Okay, cool. Thanks very much. And I'll just like to add my voice to Alistair's there. An enormous thank you to all of you for everything that you do. As Alistair says, you are the reason we're here. So thank you all very much indeed. Specifically on Soundscape, Soundscape was a Microsoft research project that ran for nearly 7 years, developing a spatial audio navigation tool for people with visual impairment. It was never a product, so it's never been up for sale or anything. It's been available in the App Store for download on iOS, though, for some considerable time. And because the visually impaired community is pretty tight-knit and pretty good at sharing, the good stuff that's out there, by the time we got to the end of 2022, about 35,000 downloads of the app had taken place across the world. But at the end of 2022, Microsoft announced that they were shutting down the research program. They removed the app from the App Store, and they announced that anybody that already had the app would lose the service in the middle of 2023. And despite there being a huge outcry and a great deal of upset, they stuck to their guns on that and said that that was what was going to happen. At the Tech for Good Summit last year, at the end of April, the charity that I am a trustee of, a visual impairment charity, tweeted a petition to try to stop Microsoft from shutting the service down, which was the first that we'd actually heard of it. The day after the summit, we were contacted by PwC, the consultancy firm who'd been at our event, asking what they could do to get involved for their single day of volunteering 6 weeks later. And we said, well, Microsoft has made the Soundscape code open source. Please go and have a look at it and tell us if this is something that we can reproduce in its entirety, and quickly, because we don't want the service users to lose the service. And they did exactly that. 6 weeks later, spent a day kind of unpacking code, having a look at it, and that gave us the confidence to commit to doing something about it. Microsoft delayed the switch off of the service to the end of August, which gave us around about 3 months to get stuff done, at which point the likes of Adam and Tony and others got involved and actually made it possible. We switched the service on the morning of the 31st of August, and Microsoft turned theirs off that night. And we are now at well over 8,000 downloads of that, despite not really doing much marketing on the product. And one of the big things that's missing from Soundscape is an Android app. So that's what we've been talking about here. So I'll stop talking and hand over to Adam. Get off mute.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. So yeah, as Kirsty said, I was involved in the first part of Soundscape, and just basically working on the back end to provide all the data. I thought what I'd try and do is actually show you some images so you can visualize what's going on with that. Everyone likes pictures, so I'm going to just try and share my screen here. Just click on that, share it. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. You should be able to see a big black tile that's of no use.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, if you're a user here, how do we basically give map information to someone that's blind or visually impaired? And we need to get this underlying map data to be able to show it to someone. this is a tile that we get from the back end. So the back end is a tile that it's 380 meters by 380 meters. And instead of it just being a black tile, he said, trying to find the tab that I need. Is it gone? Find it here. Seems hiding from me. Oh dear. Should have practiced this. I can't get rid of all of this stuff.
It's okay. Whilst you're looking, then so that you're not worried about the fact that there's complete silence. And I'll stop talking as soon as you find it. But one of the things I wanted to say was that Tony and Adam were just one of, or two of quite a large number of independent volunteers that stepped forward to make this possible originally last year. And they were spread all over the world. Tony, at the time, I think you were working in Eastern Europe somewhere, Kazakhstan or something like that. And Adam, you're down in the southwest of England, and we had other volunteers from the southeast of England and Scotland and everything else as well. It was an extraordinary sort of collaboration at the time. Is that you, Adam?
There we go. Yes, apologies. It was the recording meeting thing. I didn't know how to get rid of it.
Stuff.
So, okay, so this is basically the tile that you get from the back end. So all of these lines here. And there's loads of information that you get in this tile that we basically need to be able to read out to people that are using the product. So you can see there's roads, houses, each of these little markers here, the actual intersections for roads. And there's heaps of information in here. So when you get this tile, even in this one here, this is actually where I live. There's about 130 different objects in there. None of them particularly interesting, but obviously we can't just then read out 130 objects. So you need to be able to slice the tile up to be able to provide information to people. And that's what Soundscape does, and that's what we're trying to do with the Android app as well. So if I've got another tab here that you can see, I've chopped everything out, and we've just got a simple road and a turning here. This is a triangle, just like a field of view. So if I was to pretend that somewhere here, this is what you might be able to see. Now, at the moment, that's just looking ahead. It's not particularly useful, but it would then be able to pick up the road, and you'd see this little junction here. Now, Soundscape is loads more sophisticated than that behind the scenes. What it's actually doing is something like this. Just squiggle this around. And Soundscape basically has this little triangle that it uses up ahead. So that's what it's looking at ahead. And then you've got a left, ahead, right, and then right, left, behind, right. And it uses this to actually help people navigate around. So as you're moving, as your GPS point moves on your device, it picks up what's ahead of you, or ahead, left, ahead, right. And you can, it uses that to move you around. In addition to that, because Soundscape's really clever, what you can actually do is what Kirsty talked about, is put beacons in there as well. So if you're wearing headphones, if there was a beacon over here to the right, then that would be playing in your right-hand side of your headphone, or the left-hand side, or behind you. So you can actually get 3D audio as you're navigating around. I'm not going to pretend I understand the 3D audio part of it. That's someone else's, another volunteer, Dave Craig's doing that. But it's really clever, and as I say, you can get these beacons. And then as you move along, this moves along with you, and it reads things out. There's a couple of wrinkles, though, when you're actually using Soundscape, when you're using the data, because the underlying data we get from OpenStreetMap. And here's a good example of where the data isn't great, and it causes problems for people if you're navigating along. So if you're walking along here, you can see there's two bus stops that have been mapped here and here. So there's a bus stop in someone's garden, and there's another bus stop here. And if I put the street view on there, hopefully it'll pick up on that. Yeah, you can see that there's actually the real bus stop is here, And there's another bus stop. If you've got sharp eyes, you can just see they're hidden behind the tree. So even though Soundscape is clever, it's very much dependent on the underlying data being accurate. So as people use it, it might give you directions into someone's garden. So it's something that we've got to be sort of really careful about when we're using it. There's one final thing. I'll just get rid of this I wanted to show you, and that's GPS, because I didn't know this before I started working on Soundscape, which is I always have used Google Maps or Uber, and you can see your point tracking along a road. It's all really nice, and you think, oh, I'm here. And actually, in reality, your point from GPS jumps around. I know I've got a little plot that I did here. This looks a bit weird. This is my house. And I'm talking to you. I'm about here at the moment in this corner of my house. These are just little, these are the GPS points that are tracked every 5 seconds for 35 seconds. So you can see there's a couple here, and they're sort of spread around all over the place. Would anyone like to take a guess where I actually was when I was doing this? Anywhere at all?
At your computer.
At my computer. Do you know, not far off. So yeah, over here. But actually it was outside. So where my phone was here, because I was just picking up I wanted to just pick up GPS, and I turned off my Wi-Fi. And it just shows you that the actual positions that you get from GPS can actually be quite inaccurate. This circle that I've got here is about 20, well, it's 20 meters across in diameter. So depending on where these points are, you can either be in a compost bin, which is over here, over on my drive, and that's probably my bramble collection that's over there, coming over my neighbour's hedge. So it can be quite difficult to actually compensate for this stuff when you're doing that. So yeah, you have to be quite careful, I think, when you're dealing with the data. Okay, so that's the end of my nerd chat, and I've managed to not talk about code or anything, which I'm quite pleased with.
Oh, fantastic, Adam. That's super useful and really sets the context of it. I think what'd be nice is sort of now, Kirsty talked about the journey to get where we are, but we do have a few of the team members here. So we have Jantair and Alex and Seb, who are part of the current team now starting to sort of pick this up. Alex, you've got the role of Scrum Master in terms of the Android project. Do you want to kind of say a few words, introduce yourself, and kind of give an idea? And then what might be useful, Jantair, you've been doing a lot of research since the project delivered, and we really were keen to bring that to life to see if anybody was keen to get involved, to see where they can help out. We should say to anybody watching this, if you're keen to get involved, please do get in touch afterwards. There is a lot of work here. And a lot of good work. You can see Adam nodding violently. But yeah, no, it'd be lovely, Alex, if we kind of hand the microphone to your good self.
Sure. Hi there. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Adam. Interested to see your home life and that you have a bramble collection. Learning a bit more about you. Yeah, I've joined the project as Scrum Master. I've been Scrum Master on a couple of other, 4 other projects, I think, with the STA, and been Scrum Master and product owner for a number of other projects over the last 30 years. Was a coder before that, and I have actually coded in Android Studio a few years back, so it's sort of fairly familiar territory. But Adam's really been, before I arrived, doing the proof of concept, so he's done a lot of good work, as you've seen there, which he was showing you on screen. And I've joined just in the last few weeks, along with Seb, who is with us, I think. Seb, are you here? Yeah, hi, Seb. And Dave Craig, who in fact is not with us today. So we've sort of barged into this with Adam being the expert and having done all the background work. And I think Adam, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, he's been doing a lot of work in seeing where the real problems are, if there are any brick walls that we might hit. And I don't think we're anything which looks insurmountable, but there are definitely some interesting challenges ahead. And what we've been concentrating in the last couple of weeks is really stepping back for the project a little bit, seeing the size of it, getting some handle on what we'll have to do, what resources would be required, and also just double checking in the background if we're actually doing the right thing. So checking if Android Studio is actually the right platform to use. Dave was off having a look at some other platforms we could use, making sure and that we're quite happy that we're taking the right route. I think our conclusion was that yes, Android Studio makes sense. It's got a great range of libraries. It's pliable and it's sort of the industry standard, and we'll more likely get access to developers who are experts in it. We also took a look at Soundscape itself, and is this actually the right thing to be making a duplicate of? And conclusion, yes, it is. Though we wanted to look at their other features, and Seb's concentrating on this. He's doing a lot of research on other features which competing applications might have, and also taking a look at feedback from Soundscape, from users, anything that we could make adjustments or improvements to. And then our current focus, and Adam's concentrating on, and instantly, Adam, thanks very much for the chart you sent me through yesterday. It was splitting the project up into modules, which teams could undertake separately, as we've seen this being something which is substantial to undertake and complete. And in any organization, I think STA is certainly no exception, in that you can't guarantee a team will remain a consistent profile right the way through. So it makes sense to split the project up into modules which can be undertaken by teams either working sequentially, i.e. the same team, or concurrently. So if we had access to great many more resources, we could have several teams working at the same time and coordinating. So Adam's been concentrating on that and making sure that we have a profile that makes sense. I think at the moment we've got quite a lot of modules, Adam. I think you came up with 26, I counted them just before I came on here, and which is a bit more than I was expecting. So we'll try and consolidate that down to something which individual teams could undertake. My view of the project, it looks really exciting to undertake, and it's the 3 ticks I really like with the project. It's interesting, potentially career enhancing, and looks like fun. And I think if you can achieve in one of those, it's pretty good. If you can get all 3, then it's a great piece of work to undertake. So I'm looking forward to it. We've got a small team at the moment, and there's just 4 of us currently working on the project. I'm certainly looking forward to progressing it and coming back to you, hopefully at our next meeting, with some interesting developments for you all to look at. So yeah, very happy to be involved in the project. Thanks, Joe.
Brilliant, really nice summary there, Alex, and a good sales point if anybody's interested in picking up some challenging development tasks. Jintae, you've been with us since the original sort of Soundscape was released, and talking to a wealth of people. Do you want to bring that to life for people? So we're not doing this in a closed room without talking to people.
Yeah. Hi. I don't think I joined from the very start, but I think I joined in December last year, more or less. And it's my first STA project as well. So it's very exciting in that regard, because it's both ambitious but incredibly promising, right? And the fact that it is, well, for people who really need these kind of projects, it makes it even more meaningful. So yes, I am a user experience researcher in my day-to-day life, and this is the skill that I'm kind of bringing to this project. And just back when I was working with another product owner or project manager, I'm not even sure anymore. He was very hands-on and very keen to just hear back from users themselves, or just people who help adopt technology to those with low vision or more serious visual impairments. And at the time, we talked with a couple of people, but then I think the most important insight came from focus group we ran recently, that was organized by Kirsty. So thank you for that, Kirsty, again. And we invited about like 7 people who helped to, again, adopt the technology similar to Soundscape, and some of them were already familiar with Soundscape or are users of Soundscape as is now. We spent about maybe an hour and a half with them just talking about what things that they really like and appreciate about Soundscape as it stands, but also what could be better. What is that sort of a brave new world for Soundscape, so that we should be aiming for? Maybe, well, in the near but also farther future. And we found some very interesting stuff that as a user experience research wasn't surprising, but I think will be really helpful for us to sort of stand on. So for instance, well, it's already been talked about how Soundscape generally works. So for example, it's 3D sounds, meaning that you're announced things that are around you. But there are like certain limitations to it. So for example, people wish to see more customization and personalization that allows to maybe choose what is announced and what isn't, and maybe even choosing the perimeter within which these things are announced. Being able to name these kind of call outs, they call call outs, like the markers, as you wish, with further ease as it's possible now, but like there's some tiny barriers that make journey, especially of the visual impaired, a little bit harder. So just removing those is quite important, as you would imagine. Also, like how often things are announced, and maybe even being able to choose the units of measurement or the format of directions. So I'm not sure how much this is interesting to you, or like the level of detail I should go into, but just for you to get an understanding, it's not possible to choose whether it's in meters or it's in feet, or just the way it is kind of a calling whether which directions certain objects are. So currently it's cardinal, so it says north or northwest or whatever it may be, but some people might just like to maybe use like a clock face, so at 12 o'clock or the 3 o'clock and whatever, you'll see this, or you will find this kind of object. Just things like just clarity and guidance around the precision of callouts, and like facilitation of information that it might not be certain, especially in the environments that are changing. We all sort of get very annoyed when there's like not traffic, but maybe roadblocks or roadworks, or there's kind of unforeseen circumstances become some kind of a climate event, in our area, and we get a little bit disoriented. So imagine how it is like when you're using something like Soundscape, and it's kind of telling you where to go, but actually that thing isn't there anymore. And it could extend to the things like businesses. Maybe that cafe does not exist anymore, or things like that. So these kind of little bits and bobs that we will be looking at. And one interesting thing that probably comes in as well from the research is that there are still things that maybe no technology in existence have figured out. So you might as well know where you're going in a way, or where the objects are, but that last 40 feet is not really clear. So for instance, it might not be possible to get a sense like where the door is, like, or or how to enter. And this is where sort of genius decisions and maybe problem solving from different technologies can come in. And these technologies can sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Just contribute to one another's development in a way, but also obviously for the users, for the usability of the users. So you might not be very well versed in these kind of technologies, and I wasn't either. And that's one of the other very nice benefits of volunteering in these kind of projects, that you do find out a lot about different things that you might have never maybe found out otherwise. So there is an app called Be My Eyes. So it helps to sort of pair those who are sighted with those who might not be, or are less sighted. And those people can be connected upon the request with those who are willing to or wishing to see what's around them. So sort of being their eyes, quite literally. So there were some thoughts in relation to Soundscape that maybe these kind of technologies and integrations could resolve this kind of a 40 feet conundrum, for example. And that's kind of maybe leads me to the final point, where Soundscape is amazing as it stands, and we could not hear enough about it really, and that's already quite nice to hear. But what they were saying, sometimes we do have to use 3 apps, one for navigation, one for understanding maybe what's in front of me, one for understanding what objects are around me, so like Soundscape. But if Soundscape had it all in some shape or form, be that all in one app, they would not need to think about anything else. And I think that's probably the point I'm going to leave you with. With projects like this, it's amazing to imagine what it can become, and especially thinking that it could have been no more. So yeah, I hope that whoever is inspired will join the team and forces, and with all of the challenges that comes, and with volunteering while you're working, or doing some other responsibilities, I just probably going to be an advocate for this kind of work, because that extra worked hours in these kind of projects, it's just it has a lot of nice feelings coming at you when you're done, and when you bring some kind of change.
Oh, thank you.
Could I just add to that? Sorry, Joanna.
No.
Could I just add on to the end of what Jintaro was saying there? I think I was sat in on the session that Jintaro is talking about, and it was actually people from guide dogs that we were interviewing. So these are habilitation and rehabilitation specialists who effectively teach people how to use technologies like this, but they also teach people to live with their sight loss or their low vision or whatever it is. And I think one of the things that really struck me was how conscious we have to be about how people learn how to use these types of things, and that simplicity is absolutely key. And one of the fundamental things that we stuck rigidly to when we were just trying to keep the app going originally, or effectively reproduce it, was that it had to be identical to the app that everybody was already familiar with. We didn't want them to have to learn to do anything new. We just literally wanted them to download the new version of Soundscape, and it would be as familiar to them as the one that they had become reliant upon before that. So the speed at which new features are introduced, I think, is something very much kind of worth bearing in mind there. There is another version of Soundscape out there called Voice Vista, and if you have a look at how much change has actually been pushed through that app, it's unrecognizable to the original one, and that will be very difficult for some people to accommodate, because they've got to basically learn how to use things again. And we did also have a conversation about an all singing, all dancing app that could do absolutely everything, that could transition from outside to inside and everything else, is completely impractical and would be enormously cumbersome, would probably burn through all the battery life on your phone as well. And the idea was that how can you possibly consider how Soundscape transitions to some of these other technologies seamlessly without actually the user having to stop one app and launch another one and kind of pause in their day while they do all of that. So it was a really fascinating session, Jantara, actually, and congratulations on the way you kind of teased out some of the things. At one point somebody was talking about using the clock face, this idea of 12 o'clock is in front of you, 6 o'clock is behind you, and many of the rehab specialists were saying we don't teach people how to do that anymore, because these apps actually provide that information for them directly, and some agreed and some didn't agree. So it was really interesting listening to the input from there. Thank you.
Brilliant. Kirsty, you probably in working with the charities you do, also sort of seen the impact of this for new people using the app as well. How would you bring that to life? Because obviously we don't have anybody from the charities themselves here today, but is there anything you'd like to add on that element of things?
Sure. I mean, Guide Dogs is a good example of there's a suite of tools out there, if you like, that people with visual impairment can use to make day-to-day life better. Soundscape doesn't work in isolation. You need a guide dog or a white stick and all that kind of stuff, because obviously Soundscape can't tell you that there's a hole in the pavement and all that kind of stuff. So you do need to use sort of other tools that go with it. But it certainly has its place. I mean, one of the head of assistive technology at the charity that I'm a trustee with, he is really into all of this tech, and he's got examples of some absolutely spectacular haptic technology that's being used, where it uses pressure on the body to let you know where whether you're heading in the right direction, and things like, they say if you followed your own nose, you'd go around in a big circle. You're kind of predisposed to do that, whereas you can use these tools to help you cross a road, if you like, in the shortest possible distance without having kind of sort of staggering off from one side or the other. And these things are fantastic, but you know, the technology costs of those run into the thousands, and Soundscape is free. And that's one of the things. It's one of the first tools worth you know, sort of suggesting to people as a way of, you know, helping to give them their independence. Sorry, Alistair, I see you've got your hand up there. No, you're on mute. Excellent.
Great.
Damn it.
Drink penalty.
Absolutely. So everybody, well, I mean, first of all, thank you to everybody who's already spoken. I think it's fantastic. It really brings this to life. I wonder if it might be worth asking Gerhard just to give us a bit of input from his perspective as somebody who works a lot with people who have visual impairment, based over in Norway, Gerhard. So it'd be great to hear a little bit from you.
Yeah, thank you. I work for the Norwegian Association for the Blind and Partially Sighted. I work at a rehabilitation center in the north of Norway. We have 3 centers throughout Norway where we teach everything from ADL, so activities in daily life, to mobility. We have now a course going now for families where children are visually impaired from 0 to 6 going right now. So if you hear some screaming in the background, it's because they're playing with Lego in the room next to me. We have now a course, 2 days mobility test training for people with guide dogs. And I'm also involved with that because GPS is part of the toolkit for anyone venturing out in the outdoors by themselves, both in urban and in, we have a lot of mountains and fjords here in the north. So we use GPS quite actively. I'm actually going to introduce this little device from Humanware, which is the Stellar Trek GPS thing that just came to us, at least. We like to test out things. We have Blind Square, Lazzarello, of course, Soundscape when Microsoft had it, now STA. We test everything. We have multi-users. We have users who come to me and say, this is an app, you have to try this. So I take it in and try to test it. So we're very good at getting feedback from our members. We have about 8,000 members active, and of course, many support members in our association. So we have a lot of feedback, and we're a lot of nerds who like to test things. And like I say, that's you get as far as you can with an app, but you have to trust the map inside your head, your cane, and your dog. So that's the thing. So it's very important to have a tool that you can use. That's not too complex. It's sort of keep it simple kind of philosophy. That's why Soundscape was used by many of my associates. I have a lot of my colleagues are blind or visually impaired themselves, so they always come to me and say, "Hey, I've tried this, and heard about this through the grapevine, and we test it out." So we like to test things out, and right now Soundscape is very much important. I get a lot of feedback from our members that it's useful. They use it in their daily lives, so it's good. And of course, there's a few of us who are still Android users. So we're waiting very excitedly for the Android version.
I think you just signed up to testing it for us there, Gerhard, as well, didn't you? I heard that, Alistair, didn't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Typing as fast as I can.
So we like to get in contact with developers and coders and say, hey, if you want a group of people to test things, just contact us.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Conscious of time as well, and we wanted to make sure that this was kind of an open session for people to ask any questions. But we also have Seb here, and Seb is very kindly giving up a lot of his spare time in the minute. Is there anything you'd like to add, Seb, on kind of the findings you've had? Obviously, Gerhard was talking about other tools there, and you've been doing a bit of competitor analysis, I guess, for us, put simply.
No, yeah, just to a mini introduction myself. Being engineer manager, software engineer manager for many years, and the previous roles as a CTO of startups. And I work a lot with startups using the lean startup methodology. So just to resonate what I heard today, you think about how difficult to make an app. Like Microsoft spent 7 years to do this with a team of professionals, and that's what they did for 8 hours a day. So what I've been doing the last since when I joined, first is to read as much information as possible to the work already done. The report from Genter, I haven't read all of it yet, but I'm there. And I was investigating the market to understand, not really to understand much of what Soundscape does, but more about what problem is fixing. And it's very important what I heard now from, I don't read your name, from Norwegian Association, that they do the test, but that is really what I care right now, to understand what the users' main pain are, and what can we help, how can we help them to fix those pains. So again, following the lean startup methodology, which we find the main pain that we suspect that we bring them biggest benefits, and try to fix that and go live immediately. But if I think about just to copy Soundscape into Android, in my head is, oh, that's years of work. So that's my role right now as a pro owner, which is the first time I act as a real pro owner. So I'm trying to find out as much as possible what values are we trying to bring on board, and what main pain are we trying to fix. I'm not sure if it makes sense.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you, Seb. Any questions from anybody in the audience? Yeah, Alistair, go ahead.
Okay, remember to unmute this time. I've got loads of questions, so excuse me for just jumping right in there. Adam, I was interested, you're pointing out the inaccuracies of GPS positioning when you get down to that level of granularity. What's the, are there any adaptations within Soundscape to try and take account of that? Because, it's maybe, 5 meters was the kind of distance between some of the dots you were showing us?
Yeah, it depends what you're hooked into. So where I live, that was just GPS, because I don't get a mobile signal where I live. So as it's got something to triangulate from, it does get more accurate. So if you've got network and GPS, then you can probably get it down to 4 or 5 meters. I've measured it out. I'm such a nerd. I'm so sorry.
No apology required.
But if you can get access to Wi-Fi, so inside buildings, there's obviously different versions of Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi 5 will get you down to, again, roughly sort of 3 meters. Wi-Fi 6, because it's got a protocol in it. It's a round trip time protocol. That'll get you down to about 1 meter. And then if you use Wi-Fi 7, the new stuff, and if your phone's enabled with it, it'll get you down to about 10 centimeters, apparently. I'm not rich enough to afford Wi-Fi 7 or anything that'll do it, but that's obviously within buildings. But be very useful in public spaces. But you do have a limitation. If you're outside and you've just got a normal phone, I was very interested in what Gerhard was showing. I was like, what's that? But a normal phone, yeah, you do have those limitations, and there's not a way around it. Soundscape uses some tricks as well, some filters within it to sort of smooth out those jumps. In GPS land, it's called teleporting. So it uses a thing called a Kalman filter to stop it. And that's a lot of maths, and I'm not going to bore everyone with that. But yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Sorry.
Yeah, you said you had more questions, Alistair.
Well, absolutely, yeah. I'm just trying to leave space for everybody else. But Gintara, you're talking about the Be My Eyes service. One of the things, and I don't know if it came up in the sessions you've been holding, was that Stuart, who works at Seascape that Kirsty was talking about, when we had initial conversations in a session that he was in, he was obviously aware of that service, but his view was that he would be more comfortable getting directions to somebody he already knows and trusts, so a family member or friend or whatever, rather than the volunteers who provide the service through Be My Eyes. I don't know if that came up in any of your discussions, because that seemed to me like there's potential there for a specific piece of work to develop, if you like, a companion app for people who are going to make themselves available to friends or family members to be able to effectively switch on the camera on that person's phone and get a description. So like the roadwork scenario, there's a blockage in the path, can you help me here, kind of thing. Did that come up in the conversation you were having?
Yes, so the reason I mentioned Be My Eyes is just that it's just one of those solutions that is currently resolving that kind of problem. So it's not to say that it has to be integrated with that particular app, but just really getting inspired of how these kind of problems could be resolved. And it's no one mentioned using their family members for that, but there was a conversation around how can sort of camera facility be used for that purpose. And I don't intend to solutionize. I don't know the capacities, in the back end and all of these coding mysteries to me of how that would work. But yes, just to be probably brief in my answer, Alistair. Yeah, it's just we could probably speculate on just how that could resolve and be integrated either as part of the app or in some kind of a sister app.
Sure.
I mean, Microsoft has launched. Sorry, Alistair.
No, you go ahead, Kirsty.
Sorry, I was just going to say Microsoft obviously has. Microsoft does have Be My AI, so it uses artificial intelligence to effectively be the eyes, which is, an outstanding piece of technology, and it's clearly where their focus lies, which is possibly one of the reasons why they were sunsetting the Soundscape app. But it can be information overload. It's a little bit like Tony was saying, Adam was saying, around the kind of information that Soundscape might provide you. If it told you absolutely everything that was around you, you would just be, you wouldn't know anything. So, and that's kind of one of the concerns, is that if you're using these technologies potentially in conjunction with one another, that actually it provides somebody who can't see with just way too much information. It's very difficult for them to kind of figure out exactly what's going on, and it just becomes a sort of a noise in their heads that they can't make much sense of. But it's an extraordinary tool, Be My AI. I mean, it's Stuart himself, just quickly as an aside, he talked about the fact that at the age of 34, he was able to read a letter from his doctor in privacy without needing his mother to read it to him for the very first time in his life. It was a really, really kind of extraordinary moment for him, and he was able to sit down, read that letter using a special pair of glasses that read the content of the letter to him, which was wonderful. Sorry, Jean.
Hi. First of all, Seb, I just love your lean words or music to my ears about what problem are we trying to solve, and really making sure that we focus on the right things first in the new development. I was also excited by the wonderful research that you've done, Jindara, and thinking, does this mean that the Android app might, in some respects, leap ahead of the iOS one? And is iOS parked for now? Or is there a thought to try and go, oh, that was a great bit over there, we'll need to do that too?
Well, from my perspective, I think that that's a really interesting question. I mean, I think from my understanding, there's a great deal of work on the Android port to make it functional in the first place. Because as has been said, there's so much work has gone into it already. I, from our perspective as a group, would think it'd be really great if we could have work progressing on the Android version, which is, adding some of these functionality enhancements that people have requested, rather than having to wait until, we've got the Android version to a point where it's out there, it's in live use before we can think about adding any more functionality. So I think, we've got Tony on the call, who was very actively involved, and I know is up for doing some more development. If we could find a couple of additional iOS developers and form a little team around Tony and the knowledge he's already got, then I think it'd be a tremendous opportunity if we can do that.
So basically what we're trying to make sure is we're not running sequentially, Jean. So there's a significant amount of work that the breakdown that Adam talked about is that kind of, how do we break this into small problems? How do we approach it smartly? Seb overlapped with the let's not build stuff we've already got, has done well elsewhere. And equally Jintal, when she was talking about the kind of holistic user experience, Soundscape doesn't fill all the gaps at the minute. So how do you actually make sure it does work for somebody in the endpoint? So the team predominantly here are the team that have been trying to break down that Android Everest, if we call it that. And equally Jintal has been helping to shape with the iPhone version what makes sense to do next, effectively. So there will be a couple of work streams running effectively. Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I don't have a question, but I was just going to make a reflection. When we first used Soundscape from SDA over from Microsoft, what impressed me was I downloaded the app from App Store into an iPhone. We have at the center, and it just worked. You copied directly from Microsoft's one version to your version, and I turned it on, changed the language to Norwegian. It just worked. And that's a very important thing, that when the Android version comes for, it just as long as it's just works with no, a lot of, have to figure this out. It's very important for new users that it just plug and play. And I think that was a very important thing that I just said, wow, that was quite impressive, because not every app you find in the world is developed for small languages like Norwegian, Danish, and other small languages, even though we're a lot of nerds in the north. And another thing is there is a lot of GPS things running around in the world, like Stellar Track from Humanware. I'm going to put a link in the chat so they can get it. But a lot of people don't like to have these extra things. They like to have their phone, but of course, use of batteries, could be an issue if it's an app that's too heavy. It has too many functions. So it's a thing that's got to find the right balance, because there are good GPS things out there, but not a lot of people want to have a backpack full of chargers and power banks because they have 2-3 different devices that they have to use at different times. They want to have just all in one, on the phone, but it doesn't have to be so battery resources being used up all the time. So it's just trying to find the right balance. But again, thanks to your team that made the first iOS app for Soundscape, because it just worked out of the box.
Take a bite, Tony.
Yeah.
Take a bite, Tony.
Tony, would you want to say a few words? I don't want to force you to, but obviously as part of the original team, you're more than welcome to share your experience, what you got from it.
Thank you very much. Basically, for me, I wanted to work on a project that I kind of related with personally, and Soundscape actually fitted into that at that point in time, because even though I'm not completely visual impaired, I kind of have issues with my eyes in a way, so I can relate to people that are visually impaired. So because of that, the application was kind of relatable to me, as I said. So we started. I got in contact with Alistair, great personality. We did a couple of Zoom calls, and I was on board. Basically, as I've gone through the application and the use case before then. So we were joined by Dukan. He's also an iOS developer, but he's not here at the moment. And also Adam, and for backend, I think, yeah. So we started working on it. We kind of did the rollover. Installing the application was not so easy initially. It had kind of glitches, but we updated the documentation on how to do that. And we started working on rolling it over completely to Soundscape STA. and we had a bit, we had some bugs along the line, if I can remember. We tried to fix that. I think we searched functionalities. Then with location, it was using CA location and MapKit basically. So we kind of like to work on that, fix the email part of it also, and yeah, and we were able to meet up with the deadline, which was good. So basically, everybody was happy with that, and it went live, which was like a great experience for me, which I was also like really, really glad about. And I think later on, I kind of like worked on the branding as well. I mean, I think, yeah. And then, yeah, so it's good for me to see people using Soundscape and having like positive experience with it. That's like very joyful for me. And yeah, so I mean, I'm looking forward to Soundscape even getting bigger and becoming more useful to the community as time goes on. I think for now, that's all I'm going to say. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're out of time. But you are more than welcome to continue to ask Adam, Alex, Seb any questions. They're on the Slack channels. Yeah, really excited. Hopefully the next one will be showing you the Android version. No pressure, guys. But yeah, really appreciate everything you've done, guys. Working after hours between the cracks. It's really appreciated by all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you all for listening. Really lovely to have you all here. If you have any questions afterwards, please just ask away. An hour seems like a long time and then it goes really quickly. So thank you, everybody.
Indeed.